Lauren and Alexei are gone. Just like that, fans noticed they weren't on any promos, no upcoming episodes, nothing. For a couple who was supposed to be one of the franchise's shining success stories, their sudden disappearance feels like a hard punch. And it's not just absence, it's deliberate. Something happened behind the scenes that no one outside TLC was supposed to see. Some sources hint at contract disputes, others talk about clashes over control of their story. Either way, it wasn't a quiet break or a creative pause. This was a removal, carefully planned and quietly executed. You have to wonder, why would TLC, a network that thrives on drama, erase one of their most relatable couples without explanation? Why pull the plug on people who had built trust with the audience and a seemingly stable reputation? Something bigger is hiding behind the silence, and it's more than just contractual fine print or a schedule shuffle. Fans have noticed small clues, subtle changes in social media activity, vanished promos, even re-edited episodes. The story of what really happened is hidden, tangled, and it will change the way we see the franchise. By the time you realize what's going on, you're already hooked. Lauren and Alexei started their 90-day fiancé journey like any other couple on the show. Excited, hopeful, and just trying to make it work across borders. Viewers immediately connected with them because they weren't shouting at each other every other scene or stirring chaos for cameras. They were relatable. They had small, everyday struggles that people recognized, balancing work, parenting, and marriage under pressure. Their story didn't rely on explosive arguments or over-the-top drama. Fans rooted for them because they felt real, grounded, and, dare I say it, refreshing in a sea of manufactured chaos. That's what made their sudden disappearance even more shocking. A couple who built their reputation on calm, consistent relatability suddenly vanished without explanation. Contrast that with other cast members who often become famous for fighting, scheming, or creating scandal. Lauren and Alexei weren't like that. They weren't the never a dull moment type whose every word turns into a meme or headline. Instead, their appeal was stability, the promise that the franchise could occasionally produce a success story, a couple that could last beyond the cameras. But here's the kicker. That very stability might have made them a problem for the network. Popularity comes with leverage, and leverage, especially when paired with clean public perception, can make executives nervous. Fans started noticing small things first. A promo they were supposed to be in disappeared. A teaser for an upcoming spin-off quietly vanished from the schedule. Even their Instagram posts, once lively and filled with family moments, grew vague, cryptic, almost withdrawn. Nothing screamed scandal at first glance, but when you start connecting the dots, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. It wasn't random. Every missing frame, every canceled meeting, every subtle shift in tone suggested that someone was quietly rewriting their role in the franchise. People started asking questions online. Why weren't they in previews? Why had their family milestones stopped appearing on official pages? These small signs were the breadcrumbs leading fans to a mystery that no one was officially acknowledging. But let's rewind a bit and talk about how we got here. Early on, Lauren and Alexei were navigating their own journey like any other reality couple, filming schedules, interviews, and social media obligations. But there was one difference. They were increasingly involved in discussions about how their story was portrayed. Off camera, they weren't just passive participants. Lauren, in particular, was raising concerns about how certain moments, family interactions, disagreements, even private conversations were being edited to exaggerate tension. She wasn't saying don't show anything dramatic. She was asking for fairness and boundaries. Alexei reportedly echoed her concerns, questioning why some cast members' controversies were treated differently. These weren't demands for special treatment. They were about consistency and respect for their family life. Now, production teams are used to handling feedback from cast members. But what made Lauren and Alexei different was how consistent and public-facing their concerns were. Other couples might grumble quietly or let small edits slide. Lauren and Alexei wanted to know the rules of the game and ensure their family was represented honestly. They pushed for creative input, not for attention or ratings, but to protect their story and their children. And while that sounds reasonable to viewers, In a controlled reality TV environment, this can create tension. The more influence a cast member has over narrative control, the less predictable they become. Networks like TLC thrive on chaos and control. When someone wants to redirect the narrative, even subtly, it can be seen as a threat. Fans might not realize that reality shows are a delicate balance of storytelling and authority. Most cast members accept that drama will be heightened for entertainment. They know their reactions may be edited or highlighted to serve a storyline. Lauren and Alexei's approach challenged that implicit understanding. By asserting boundaries and questioning editorial choices, they inadvertently shifted the power dynamic. For a couple who had been positioned as relatable and trustworthy, this was the start of a slow, almost invisible clash between personal agency and network control. During this period, fans began noticing other subtle changes. Episodes that were meant to highlight the family's milestones were shortened or re-edited. Scenes that had previously focused on their parenting or sweet moments were minimized. Promotional posts that once featured the couple prominently were replaced or removed. Even social media activity became a puzzle. Vague captions, occasional cryptic posts, periods of silence, it all suggested that something behind the curtain was changing. Viewers began theorizing online, trying to piece together why a couple who had been a franchise favorite was suddenly being minimized. But the friction wasn't just about visibility. It was about story ownership. Lauren and Alexei were negotiating contracts, not for extravagance, but for clarity on how they and their children would be represented. They reportedly requested limits on filming certain family interactions and a voice in editing storylines involving their personal lives. While these requests seem reasonable from a fan's perspective, they disrupted a system designed to maintain control over the narrative. The network's response, according to insiders, was cautious. Instead of outright confrontation, changes were subtle, almost invisible to the casual viewer. This quiet strategy allowed the network to retain control without creating public backlash, but it also slowly sidelined the couple from the franchise's central storylines. The tension escalated quietly. Early disagreements that might have been handled with small compromises began stretching into longer discussions, meetings, and internal negotiations. Lauren and Alexei were persistent but calm, asking for fairness and clarity. At the same time, production was trying to maintain a smooth fade. Each minor request and clarification created small ripples that, when added together, began to feel like waves of disruption. From a viewer's standpoint, nothing obvious had changed at first, but fans who followed episodes closely, compared promotional material, and read social media could sense a shift. Something was brewing under the surface, and it was heading toward a breaking point. By this stage, the couple's absence from certain promotional efforts and re-edited content was no longer subtle. Fans began noticing patterns, missing appearances, abrupt pauses in social posts, and changes in filming schedules. It wasn't random. Each adjustment pointed to one thing: a relationship between the couple and the network that was fraying. What started as minor disagreements about boundaries, editorial decisions, and storytelling escalated into a confrontation with career-altering stakes. A couple once celebrated for stability and relatability was now caught in a system that prioritized narrative control over individual agency. Fans online began connecting dots and speculating wildly. Some guessed there had been an explosive argument. Others theorized that contract negotiations had failed. A few even wondered if legal complications were at play. The truth, however, was a slow burn, a complex mix of professional disagreements, creative tension, and strategic decision-making by the network. What may have looked like small, insignificant disagreements to the casual observer were in fact laying the groundwork for a much larger showdown, one that would ultimately redefine the couple's role in the franchise. The irony is striking. Lauren and Alexei's calm, relatable demeanor, the very quality that drew fans in, was now a factor in the tension. Networks often prefer volatility because it drives ratings. Stability can feel like a threat when it comes with leverage, a loyal fan base, and a voice in how one story is told. What seemed like minor discussions about fairness and family boundaries quietly escalated into a situation that could no longer be contained. From the first episodes of 90 Day Fiancé to their last visible appearances, the arc is clear in hindsight. Fans who followed every Instagram update, every promotional clip, and every episode closely can piece together the early signs of tension. Missing posts, minimized screen time, canceled spin-offs, they were breadcrumbs leading toward a confrontation that no one outside the network was officially allowed to see. The couple's relatability, once their strongest asset, had become a subtle catalyst for conflict behind the scenes. And the questions keep piling up. How did a couple that seemed so stable end up quietly removed? Was it simply about story control, or did it reveal something deeper about how reality TV balances control with authenticity? Could this have been avoided if production had been more transparent or flexible? Fans are left piecing together the puzzle from subtle cues, and that tension, the not knowing, the quiet unraveling, is exactly what makes this story so gripping. The quiet escalation between Lauren and Alexei and the network is a reminder that reality TV isn't just about what happens on camera. Every choice, every edit, every minor disagreement can ripple outward, creating consequences that eventually reach the audience in unexpected ways. And for this couple, what looked like small, professional negotiations quietly became a career-defining showdown, the effects of which fans are still trying to understand. Things behind the cameras were heating up in ways fans could never see. Lauren and Alexei weren't just quietly filming their family life, they were quietly negotiating. Sources say they were asking for limits on how their children could be filmed, insisting on input into storylines, and raising concerns about how certain moments were edited to exaggerate tension. At first, it might have seemed like standard requests. Any veteran reality star would ask for some measure of control. But for Lauren and Alexei, it wasn't about ego, it was about agency. They wanted to protect their family, their image, and the truth of their relationship. And in a show built on heightened drama, that made them harder to manage than the most volatile cast members. Fans may not have realized that each small request was a ripple in a system designed to maintain absolute narrative control. The network prefers predictability. They highlight conflict, reward spectacle, and minimize voices that could challenge how the story is framed. Lauren and Alexei, with their loyal fan base and consistent public image, suddenly had leverage. Their rise from stable, relatable couple to influential participants created friction. Sources claim executives quietly flagged the couple's increased assertiveness as a potential threat. The longer the negotiations went on, the more tension mounted. And just when it seemed these disagreements were minor, things began to spiral. Promotional content began to change quietly. Scenes featuring the couple were minimized or re-edited. Teasers for spin-offs vanished. Fans started noticing the absence, but no explanation was offered. It wasn't a public argument. It was a silent erasure. Imagine noticing your favorite couple disappearing from the platform that made them famous without a word. The network was attempting a quiet containment strategy, reducing exposure without sparking outrage. It's the kind of subtle maneuver only insiders understand, but the audience could feel it anyway. Something was brewing, and it wasn't small. The psychological stakes were high for Lauren and Alexei. They weren't interested in making enemies, but they also refused to allow their story, or their children, to be manipulated for dramatic effect. Every decision they pushed back on increased the tension. The couple reportedly found it frustrating to see selective drama rewarded in other cast members, while their own attempts to maintain honesty and consistency were sidelined. In their eyes, it was a question of fairness. For the network, however, this was a clash of control. Authority was being challenged quietly but decisively, and in reality television, that rarely ends well. During this period, behind-the-scenes meetings intensified. Production staff began redirecting communication through official channels, limiting informal contact. Crew members noticed a subtle freeze, no casual conversations, no behind-the-scenes banter, just a slow, deliberate separation. It wasn't an immediate firing, but sources say the network was testing options, assessing risk, and figuring out how to remove the couple with minimal backlash. Fans were left to speculate. Why was Lauren posting cryptic messages about boundaries and fairness? Why did Alexei seem more reserved in social media appearances? Each small post was a breadcrumb of tension that no one outside the inner circle fully understood. At the same time, the network was weighing legal considerations. Contract negotiations, while routine in many reality shows, had escalated to a point where executives were concerned about exposure. Sources indicate that phrases like strategic disengagement started circulating internally, a way of saying they were planning a careful exit, not as punishment, but as risk management. Every step of the process had to balance fan loyalty, potential media scrutiny, and the couple's legal leverage. The stakes were high, and each decision had layers of consequence. Fans were noticing subtle patterns, too. Re-edited scenes, silent Instagram posts, delayed or canceled promotions. It created a cloud of curiosity. Online forums lit up with speculation. Some guessed a feud, some a contract issue, and some theorized that the couple had decided to leave voluntarily. No one could confirm anything, and that uncertainty made the story even more compelling. Every cryptic social post, every subtle withdrawal, was like a pulse signaling that tension was growing behind the curtain. The narrative was no longer just about who would survive the season, it was about control, fairness, and agency in a system designed to minimize both. Sources suggest that Lauren and Alexei's resistance wasn't about being difficult. It was about understanding the stakes. They were protecting their family, asserting personal boundaries, and questioning editorial decisions that felt manipulative. In other words, they were claiming their voice in an industry that often minimizes individual agency for the sake of drama. That voice, however, became a point of contention. The more they pushed, the more the network responded cautiously, quietly assessing what risk their continued involvement posed to brand perception and contract stability. The couple's popularity complicated matters further. They weren't fringe cast members whose absence would barely register. Removing them meant dealing with fan backlash, social media speculation, and unanswered questions. Sources say TLC carefully orchestrated their removal, limiting exposure gradually while redirecting resources toward other storylines. Episodes were re-edited, future appearances quietly canceled, and promotional visibility reduced. The network wanted control over the story without creating an explosion of controversy, but every small adjustment sent ripples through the audience, sparking curiosity and concern. Even as production planned this quiet exit, Lauren and Alexei were reportedly aware that their position was fragile. Social media posts reflected a growing sense of frustration and subtle warning. Lauren's cryptic updates hinted at the need for fairness, boundaries, and family protection. Alexei's appearances were more measured, perhaps a reflection of the invisible pressure building off camera. Fans who followed closely could feel the tension, even if the exact details remained hidden. Each post, each edited scene, each vanished promo built suspense, layer by layer. From the network's perspective, every action was about risk mitigation. They needed to contain the situation, maintain narrative control, and avoid public escalation. Every decision about re-edits, promotional shifts, and canceled spin-offs was strategic. Legal teams were reportedly involved in every step, ensuring that the couple's removal wouldn't expose the franchise to lawsuits or backlash. For viewers, the signs were subtle, but insiders describe it as a carefully choreographed containment effort designed to keep the story out of the headlines while still protecting the network's brand. At the same time, Lauren and Alexei weren't backing down. Their quiet resistance and insistence on fairness created a standoff. They wanted control of their narrative, protection for their children, and respect for the consistency that had made them a favorite among fans. The more they pushed, the more the network responded with subtle freezes, re-edits, and reduced visibility. This invisible tug-of-war created a tension that fans could sense even without knowing the specifics. Something major was brewing, and it would soon spill over in ways that couldn't be contained. And fans were about to see hints of it. Social media posts became more cryptic. Instagram stories hinted at frustration, mentions of fairness, and subtle complaints about being misrepresented. No one outside the couple knew exactly what was happening, but observant viewers were already piecing together a narrative of tension and silent conflict. The slow, deliberate removal was creating suspense without a single public statement. Every absent promo and every edited scene was a clue to the growing storm behind the cameras. By the time the network had fully evaluated its options, it was clear this was more than a minor disagreement. Lauren and Alexei's insistence on agency, their protective stance over family portrayal, and their refusal to participate in selective drama had escalated into a situation that could no longer be quietly managed. The network's strategy shifted toward a controlled exit, carefully reducing exposure while preparing for a legal and PR safe disengagement. Fans were left speculating, social media was buzzing, and the couple's quiet posts added fuel to the fire. And here's where it gets even more interesting. The couple's actual response to fans and social media activity. While the network was quietly maneuvering behind the scenes, Lauren and Alexei were subtly signaling their own perspective. They weren't broadcasting every frustration, but cryptic updates hinted at dissatisfaction, protective instincts, and a readiness to assert boundaries. Observant followers began noticing patterns, interpreting each post and story as a small window into the unfolding tension. The real twist isn't just the removal itself, it's how the couple navigated it publicly, balancing discretion, family, and fan engagement. By the time fans really started noticing, Lauren's social media activity had become a map of subtle clues. Short posts, vague stories, and cryptic captions suggested frustration, boundaries, and reflection. She wasn't airing grievances outright, but anyone paying attention could sense something was off. A simple selfie, her hand on her forehead, a caption about some days being harder than others, those tiny moments hinted at a deeper tension. Fans began comparing timelines, trying to connect dots between missing promos, delayed appearances, and vanished spin-offs. Every pause, every silence, became a talking point. Could this really be about control? Or was there more behind the scenes that the cameras couldn't capture? Fans became amateur detectives, piecing together the disappearance of one of the franchise's most beloved couples. They noticed episodes where Lauren and Alexei's screen time was suddenly reduced, even when they had been central to storylines just weeks earlier. Archived promotional clips no longer highlighted their family moments. Social media accounts that had previously celebrated milestones and vacations seemed frozen. Online forums lit up, cataloging each disappearance, each cryptic post, and each re-edited scene. The speculation wasn't just idle chatter, it was a form of storytelling from the audience, a way for fans to reclaim the narrative that had been quietly taken from them. The reactions were mixed, but intense. Some fans expressed outrage, feeling the couple had been treated unfairly. Others supported TLC's strategy, arguing that the network had the right to manage the show as they saw fit. Discussions ranged from detailed breakdowns of social media timelines to debates over the ethics of reality TV editing. Would you stay silent if you were in Lauren and Alexei's position, watching your life carefully edited and manipulated while the world speculated about motives? That's the question many fans started asking themselves, and it kept the conversation alive across Instagram, Twitter, and Reddit threads. Lauren's subtle hints weren't just complaints. They were strategic signals. By posting cryptic updates, she gave fans permission to notice something was wrong without breaking legal constraints. A simple line about fairness, about protecting her family, or about days being better than others became an emotional breadcrumb trail. Each post sparked hours of online analysis. People compared timestamps, vacation photos, and episode airings, trying to determine when the behind-the-scenes conflict had begun. Every post created tension and anticipation. Who could have guessed that a black tank top and a tied-up bun could generate so much speculation? The couple's disappearance from spin-offs and special episodes only intensified the drama, where once they had been a fixture in promotional material, suddenly they were gone. Fans noticed that future projects, even casual mentions in other cast members' content, quietly omitted them. Conversations between producers, cast members, and social media managers may have been invisible to viewers, but fans started to detect patterns. Each missing appearance was a subtle question mark. Why were they being left out? What had happened to Lauren and Alexei behind closed doors? And as speculation grew, so did engagement. Every mystery fueled fan obsession. Social media reactions weren't just analytical, they were emotional. Supporters empathized with Lauren's position, praising her for protecting her children and asserting boundaries. Others criticized the couple, saying they were difficult or overreacting to normal production edits. The contrast in reactions reflected the broader tension inherent in reality TV. Fans are emotionally invested, but they rarely have the full story. Online arguments mirrored the behind-the-scenes conflict, creating a kind of echo chamber where speculation fueled more speculation. Every cryptic post and every vanished promo became another spark in the discussion. keeping the story alive long after filming ended. The couple's interactions with fans, though restrained, were telling. Lauren occasionally responded to comments in subtle ways, not confirming speculation, but hinting at frustration, fairness, and personal agency. Alexei's social presence was calmer, more measured, suggesting an awareness of the stakes and a desire to maintain privacy. Their approach seemed to say, "We're aware of what's happening, but we won't let it spiral publicly." For viewers, this added another layer to the intrigue. If the couple were fighting quietly behind the scenes, how much of what we saw on social media reflected reality? And how much was simply performance for fans? Each small hint raised more questions than answers. Fans also began revisiting past episodes, looking for subtle clues about tension or disagreements. Old Instagram stories, pillow talk snippets, and commentary moments were dissected. Every sigh, every glance, every mild disagreement suddenly seemed significant. What had once been a relatable, grounded couple became the center of a slow-burning mystery. The more fans analyzed, the more the network's quiet strategy became apparent. TLC's approach, silence, minimal exposure, and careful editing was working. But it also created a narrative void that the audience eagerly tried to fill. The missing pieces became the story. Online communities became buzzing hubs of theory and debate. Viewers compared the couple's social media history, cross-referenced with episode airings, and documented timelines. Influencers posted theory videos, breaking down what they could infer from public information. Forums were flooded with questions. Was this a contract issue? Did personal boundaries create friction with production? Could this affect future seasons? Would the couple return in upcoming spin-offs? The absence itself became a spectacle, and fans' obsession kept the drama alive. The mystery deepened when Lauren posted about personal boundaries and family protection, without clarifying specifics. Every post hinted at an ongoing struggle, yet stayed within legal and contractual limits. Fans interpreted these posts as validation of speculation about behind-the-scenes tension. Discussions online intensified, and each cryptic post triggered hundreds of comments and hours of debate. The tension wasn't just in the show, it spilled into the fan experience, creating a layered, interactive drama that engaged audiences on multiple levels. Even within the fan base, debate turned to loyalty and ethics. Some argued that TLC was justified in protecting its brand and managing storylines strategically. Others insisted that Lauren and Alexei had been treated unfairly, punished for insisting on honesty and fairness. The discussions weren't about gossip for gossip's sake. They were about trust, narrative control, and the role of personal agency in a high-stakes reality show. Every missing promo, every quiet withdrawal, and every cryptic Instagram post fueled the conversation. Could a reality show ever truly balance storytelling with respect for its stars' personal boundaries? And then there were the surprises. Occasional posts from the couple during holidays or family trips hinted that life continued beyond the cameras. A family vacation in Israel, stories celebrating their children, subtle updates about daily life. These were quiet counterpoints to the drama, showing fans that the couple remained grounded. Yet even these posts were analyzed. Why did they post now? Was this a message to fans, a subtle signal to the network, or just ordinary family moments? Each post created new questions, each story a clue that kept fans coming back for more. The fan conversation also amplified speculation about future seasons. Viewers wondered whether upcoming projects like 90 Day Diaries would revisit these tensions. Could unresolved conflicts resurface on camera? Would Lauren and Alexei assert more control in new projects? Or would the network limit their visibility further? Each discussion, each theory, each post added weight to the overarching narrative of control, negotiation, and personal agency. And while the couple remained largely silent about specifics, the audience continued to fill the gaps themselves. This digital detective work reached a fever pitch when fans compared Lauren's and Alexei's quiet social presence to that of other cast members. Differences were stark. Couples with more dramatic arcs, more volatility, or more scandals continued to dominate screen time. The contrast highlighted the subtle power struggle. By remaining calm, principled, and grounded, Lauren and Alexei became harder to manage, but also more intriguing to the audience. The more they resisted manipulation, the more speculation grew. Fans weren't just observing, They were emotionally invested in the story of fairness, boundaries, and personal integrity. By now, every post, story, or pause had a dual meaning: life outside the show and silent commentary on production decisions. Fans debated, empathized, speculated, and occasionally criticized, creating a web of engagement that extended the drama far beyond its original filming. Lauren and Alexei had become a kind of Rorschach test for fans. Each person interpreted their silence and subtle messaging differently, making the story richer, more interactive, and endlessly discussable. And yet, even with this intense fan analysis, the full picture remained hidden. Every clue, every disappearance, every social media hint pointed toward conflict, but no one had the complete story. This gap kept the tension high. Fans stayed alert, waiting for the moment when new episodes, spin-offs, or social posts would finally reveal more. Would the couple return in a major way? Would their agency be acknowledged, or would they remain quietly absent, letting speculation fuel engagement for seasons to come? Through it all, the story had evolved into more than just behind-the-scenes conflict. It became a lesson in fan interaction, narrative control, and the complex dynamics of reality TV. Every subtle post, every missing clip, and every cryptic story reflected not just the couple's struggle, but the audience's desire for authenticity. Would you react the same way if you felt misrepresented? Would you protect your family, assert your boundaries, and quietly signal the truth without exploding publicly? These questions kept the audience hooked, emotionally invested, and constantly analyzing every new piece of content. The ongoing mystery of Lauren and Alexei's disappearance shows how fans can co-create a narrative, filling in gaps left intentionally by production. Online communities keep the drama alive, teasing each other with theories, sharing findings, and celebrating small clues. Every cryptic post is dissected, every vanished promo becomes a potential indicator, and every subtle story fuels curiosity. The absence of a public explanation transformed the couple into both the subject and the authors of the story, in a way giving fans a front-row seat to a slow-burn reality TV mystery. Finally, with upcoming seasons and potential spin-offs on the horizon, the stakes are even higher. Fans are already speculating which storylines might revisit the couple's quiet tension, which hidden conflicts might finally be acknowledged, and how the balance of personal agency versus network control will play out on screen. Every moment in the past, every subtle post, and every edited scene has set the stage for what could be an explosive return. The anticipation is real, and the audience remains glued to every hint, every update, and every shadow of the story, still waiting to be revealed. Even after the screen time vanished and social media posts went cryptic, the real story was happening inside Lauren and Alexei. This wasn't about drama for ratings or a one-off argument. It was about control, boundaries, and the emotional price of staying true to yourself in a system designed to manipulate. Reality TV thrives on chaos, but here was a couple who refused to play that game. They wanted their lives, their family, and their story respected, and that resistance came with consequences. Fans often forget that behind the cameras, cast members are constantly negotiating a balance. Every scene, every line, every shot can be edited to create conflict, exaggerate tension, or even misrepresent intent. For Lauren and Alexei, the stakes were personal. Asking for fair portrayal of their family moments wasn't selfish. Requesting editorial input, ensuring their children weren't exploited, or pushing back against manipulative framing, these are choices that come with emotional labor most viewers never see. Standing up to a network with billions in influence is exhausting. It's not just a professional decision, it's deeply emotional. Psychologically, their actions show why self-advocacy matters. When people assert boundaries, they risk conflict, backlash, and public scrutiny. But giving up agency comes at a different cost: stress, resentment, and loss of identity. For many reality stars, staying quiet is the easier route, but Lauren and Alexei took the harder one. They resisted the narratives being imposed on them, and while that resistance may have cost them opportunities on TLC, it also maintained their integrity. Would you choose calm and principle over visibility and screen time? That's the tension their story exposes. The emotional toll is visible even in subtle ways. Lauren's Instagram stories, the slight weariness in her posts, The understated comments about certain days being harder than others, those small glimpses hint at stress, frustration, and even fear. Alexei's measured responses suggest an awareness of responsibility to protect both his family and their public image. Being in a show that thrives on personal exposure while trying to protect your private life creates constant tension. Every moment is a potential risk, and every decision feels magnified. Compare that to other cast members whose storylines thrive on unpredictability, confrontation, and sensationalism. Chaos is rewarded with screen time. Arguments, explosive moments, and scandals make producers happy. Ratings spike. The network system is built to amplify drama, not calm, grounded relationships. Lauren and Alexei's stability, relatability, and consistent persona became a kind of liability. They weren't creating spectacle. They were living life with dignity. That contrast explains why their quiet strength stood out, why their exit was so carefully managed, and why fans couldn't stop analyzing every hint. Empathy is key here. It's easy to judge a cast member for disappearing or being difficult, but few understand the emotional load behind those choices. Negotiating with a network isn't a simple business transaction. Every contract, every boundary request, every objection to misleading edits carries emotional weight. Repeatedly being told no, watching your life spun into drama you didn't authorize, and facing public speculation, this combination can be draining, demoralizing, and isolating. Fans seeing only edited footage miss the human complexity beneath. The couple's calm persona becomes even more impressive in this context. They weren't posting angry rants. They didn't attack other cast members publicly. They didn't feed the gossip cycle. Instead, they used subtle signals, cryptic posts, and carefully controlled communication. That approach maintained dignity, protected their family, and demonstrated emotional intelligence. In a system built to exploit personal vulnerability, their restraint is a form of quiet power. This story also reveals a lot about network dynamics. TLC's strategy wasn't personal, it was structural. Networks must protect brand, manage risks, and maintain control over storylines. When a cast member asserts boundaries, challenges editorial authority, or threatens to disrupt established processes, networks respond strategically. Removing Lauren and Alexei quietly minimized risk, avoided public confrontation, and kept fan attention elsewhere. The message for future cast members is clear. Visibility and popularity do not guarantee security if your personal boundaries clash with production priorities. But here's the nuance. Standing your ground isn't inherently career-ending. Lauren and Alexei's clean reputation, relatability, and public respect remain assets. Their story shows that personal agency can come at a short-term cost, but maintain long-term integrity. For viewers, this is a powerful takeaway. You can resist manipulation and still preserve your value. Even when a system pushes back, integrity often earns its own reward. Wouldn't you respect a couple who chose principle over easy fame? The contrast between chaos-driven drama and calm relatability is crucial. While other cast members are praised for explosive moments or sensational storylines, Lauren and Alexei were quietly beloved for authenticity. That authenticity made their absence more noticeable. Fans didn't just miss them. They speculated, debated, and recreated narratives online. Their calm presence created a ripple effect, showing that stability, fairness, and grounded behavior are rare commodities in reality TV. That scarcity made their story even more compelling, turning a quiet conflict into a public obsession. Emotional insight also extends to family dynamics. The couple's insistence on protecting their children from intrusive filming reflects a universal struggle, balancing work with family well-being. It's a choice most viewers can relate to, even outside the reality TV world. Decisions that may seem minor, editing choices, screen time allocation, consent for personal exposure, carry amplified consequences on a show built around intimacy. The emotional toll is real, and the audience's fascination stems partly from seeing relatable human stakes amplified on camera. Interestingly, this story also exposes fan psychology. Viewers were quick to create theories, analyze cryptic posts, and reconstruct timelines. The intensity of fan reaction demonstrates how invested audiences are in fairness and authenticity. People notice when a system seems unfair, even in entertainment. The emotional resonance of Lauren and Alexei's choices taps into universal themes: the desire for respect, the struggle for autonomy, and the need to protect family. Fans empathize because they see parts of themselves in these struggles. From a behavioral standpoint, their story shows the cost of agency in high control environments. Resisting manipulation requires courage, patience, and strategy. Every post, every story, every subtle message was carefully considered. The audience often interprets these as cryptic or mysterious, but they are acts of measured resilience. That restraint transforms private tension into public fascination, creating suspense without spectacle. The narrative tension exists because the couple chooses principle over pandemonium. The lesson extends beyond reality TV. Standing up for your boundaries, negotiating fairly, and maintaining integrity under pressure are challenges anyone can relate to. Yet in the amplified environment of unscripted television, the stakes are exponentially higher. Mistakes are public, criticism is magnified, and every move is dissected. Lauren and Alexei's story humanizes the cost of visibility, showing that even successful, relatable figures can experience vulnerability, emotional strain, and professional risk. Empathy deepens when considering long-term effects. The quiet stress, the careful management of social presence, and the constant negotiation with production creates a sustained emotional load. Unlike short-lived conflicts that explode in dramatic moments, this is a slow burn tension. The frustration, the worry about reputation, the sense of limited control, these are invisible pressures that viewers rarely see, but which shape behavior. Recognizing this adds a human dimension to the story. Fans who followed the couple's journey began to appreciate this depth over time. Every cryptic post, every missing promotional moment, every re-edited scene became a clue, a window into the emotional stakes. Their calm, principled approach contrasted sharply with cast members who thrived on chaos, and that contrast amplified viewer engagement. People weren't just entertained, they were emotionally invested in understanding choices, motivations, and the consequences of standing firm. And the implications for future cast members are profound. Lauren and Alexei set a precedent. Asserting boundaries is possible, but it comes with risk. Networks will quietly manage disruption, enforce control, and balance story with brand protection. Fans may notice subtle signs and speculate endlessly, but behind the scenes, the system enforces its rules. Aspiring reality stars now have a real-life example of both the rewards and costs of self-advocacy. Their story demonstrates that emotional intelligence, resilience, and careful management of visibility are as critical as charisma or conflict-driven appeal. Finally, the story shows the power of relatability. Lauren and Alexei weren't sensational. They were human. Their calm, consistent, and principled behavior contrasted sharply with chaos-driven personalities. That contrast made them stand out, made fans notice, and made every subtle social media post a moment of suspense. The emotional resonance of their choices is what keeps the audience invested. People care not because of scandals, but because they see authenticity, vulnerability, and a struggle for fairness. A story that mirrors real life more than reality TV usually allows. Their journey leaves fans with questions that will linger through upcoming seasons. How far will networks go to protect narratives? How will cast members navigate personal boundaries in high-pressure environments? And, most importantly, what will happen when future stars face the choice between integrity and visibility? Lauren and Alexei's experience has quietly reshaped expectations, highlighting the delicate balance between personal agency and systemic control, leaving viewers both fascinated and emotionally engaged. Lauren and Alexei's story doesn't end with their quiet disappearance from the show. The fallout is bigger than just missing episodes or cryptic posts. It's about the cost of standing up for yourself, protecting your family, and refusing to let a network rewrite your life. Fans are left piecing together fragments, speculating on what really happened behind closed doors, and wondering if any other couples will face the same invisible pressure. Their journey shows that integrity can come with a heavy price, and sometimes staying true is the bravest and loneliest choice of all. The unanswered questions linger. Will TLC's approach to control and narrative shape future seasons? How many other cast members quietly bend under pressure without fans ever knowing? And what happens when the next couple tries to assert themselves, like Lauren and Alexei did? The truth is, the system favors spectacle over stability, and only a few will navigate it without losing themselves. Next, we're going even deeper. We'll explore hidden conflicts, unseen exits, and the backstage battles other cast members faced that the cameras never showed. Secrets, tensions, and strategic removals that could change how you see 90 Day Fiancé forever. The question is, who will be next, and how far will the network go to keep control?